I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we're going to review the new album from a band you might have heard of before, called The Flaming Lips. The album is called The Terror. This is their 13th album. Tom, when we were getting started with VIMTV, we actually reviewed their most recent album prior to this one called Embryonic, which was a big change of pace based on At War with the Mystics, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, and the Soft Bullet, and the albums that came out before that. And then, you know, those three albums were a different sound than the kind of acid rock that Flaming Lips started as, you know, and then they moved on to more indie rock and pop with the three albums previously mentioned. And then, how would you describe the sound of Embryonic, Tom?
Embryonic, man, it was so much darker than anything they'd done recently. Yeah, you know, you listen to like the Soft Bulletin, it's got, even if in its darker moments, has this optimistic vibe.
It does.
Embryonic was just like very pessimistic, very explosive, overdriven in the sound and the production.
Yeah, almost a punk influence to it as well. And this album takes that kind of mood shift and really takes it to the next level. This album, I don't really want to try and compare it to another style because it's a style in and of itself. I feel like The Terror is all about the construction of a very specified atmosphere and sound. One that is, as Tom pointed out to me, pretty much devoid of any melody other than Wayne Coyne's pretty iconic vocals. I mean, his high falsetto that's kind of airy is really the only melody you get. Other than that, you know, you have, you know, your just basic beat structure with a lot of almost just synths playing as atmosphere.
Glitchy, kind of digital and like overblown analog noises just going in and out of every ear.
And distorted guitar and a little bit of bass. I mean, really that just forms the composition of these moody pieces, but that's what this album's all about. It's all about just this giant mood bomb that is The Terror. It's about the listening experience, and they definitely did construct this album to be a listening experience, which is something that if you've watched us before, you know that Tom and I both really appreciate. Now, I actually read that Wayne Coyne was quoted as saying that this album was kind of inspired by the world, as if there was no love in the world. That, you know,
I read that too, and I thought that was a really cool approach. You know, and
it really makes you think differently about the album when you know that, because it's like, wow, it puts everything into perspective.
Yeah, because that's what the terror is to them. The terror of knowing that really we would all still scientifically and biologically survive without love and without that human compassion. And so when you think about it from that perspective, this is almost like a soundtrack or a case study of that idea in music form. So as expressive music, I think it succeeds very well on that level. And actually, I would even say that the album artwork plays into it. You have those just very, very sharp colors, but they all kind of just blur together to form kind of an image that you can almost make the edges out of. And that's how I think the music sounds too. Everything just bleeds together, but you still have this like voice of desperation, which is Wayne Coyne singing through all the noise. And that's what really took this album a long time to get used to for me, because really the only thing you can attach to is Wayne Coyne's vocals, and then just everything that's swirling around it provides a context for those vocals. But the vocals are also so low and obscured in the mix so often that it just takes a lot of listens to understand exactly what he's doing. And I think once you do, and once you understand the lyrics, then I think this is a really cool record. Now, at the same time, while I respect the hell out of it from that kind of experimental and expressive standpoint, it's also not something I'm going to come back to all the time, just because it doesn't really have anything pulling me in.
Well, there's not a lot of hooks on this album, hardly at all. I mean, even Wayne Coyne's vocals, you know, we say that that's where the melody's at. That doesn't mean that there's a lot of melody in the vocals to begin with. And really, his vocal parts aren't anything, they're not his most catchy vocal parts that he ever, the music and the drums don't lend itself to a catchy vocal part. And it wouldn't have fit with the thing that they were going for. So I agree with you, Tom. I gotta praise the hell out of this album for really going after an idea and setting their scope as very defined and then nailing it. The only downside is there just isn't a lot of real quality songwriting. This album, and it almost reminds me of a lot of the electronic music in the electronic albums we reviewed in the past year or two, where it's all focused on the sound itself, and the actual songwriting elements and how the songs are put together really isn't that advanced. These songs are just kind of, they range in track lengths from anywhere from 4 minutes to 7 or 8 minutes. There's even a longer track on here in You Lust, which actually features Phantogram, a band that
we love those guys.
We love them. Actually got to interview them, see them live. So it was really cool to hear them on this album, although, you know, albeit their part really doesn't sound like Phantogram at all. But you know, the structures of these songs are just kind of amalgamous. They just kind of just trail on and form until you have this just amoebic blob of music that just kind of forms a soundscape, and that's what The Tear does in almost every track. Now, I think that as the album gets towards the end, I feel like this album gets is a little bit stronger just on the back end. It takes you a while to really adjust to the songs. And I feel like You Lust, being the long track on the album, was actually a little bit overdone. Other than that, I feel like all the songs are justly paced and nicely. They just play nicely, and once you get to the end of the album, you get to more Butterfly, How Long It Takes to Die, Turning Violet, and Always There in Our Hearts, which I think the closing track just blew me away.
Yeah, really
Some
good.
of the lyrics on this album are the Flaming Lips' best, and that really caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that when I first heard this sound. So some really positive things to say. I just didn't feel like this album really had enough girth for me to cling on to and say this is one of the best albums I've heard this year, but it's definitely really good. I'm going to go 74 on this
I'm going to go 72.
What did you guys think of The Tear? How does this rank as far as your favorite Flaming Lips album? And really, what do you want to see us review coming up in 2013? Please let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or on the YouTube channel. Also, please follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook and shoot us a line about whatever music you're into right now. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
Try